Welcome back to the deep dive. And if you're the learner joining us today, wow, you've given us quite a stack of sources here.
Yeah, it's a fascinating collection.
All looking at this, relentless instability in the global economy. But, and this is the key, through a really unconventional lens.
Completely. Our mission today, as I see it, is to blend that hard data, the usual suspects, debt reports, volatility indexes, with something much older.
Exactly. The strategic clarity you can get from the ancient wisdom of the Yijing, the book of changes. We want to cut through all that noise,
And give you, the learner, real strategic clarity, not just more data points.
Because the sources are pretty clear, aren't they? This current economic mess, it's not like one single big bang event.
No, definitely not. There's no date you can circle on the calendar. It's not a meteor strike hitting the financial system.
It's more like a chronic condition.
That's a good way to put it. A persistent structural ailment. The sources call it a condition of severe uncertainty.
And an unstable equilibrium, which sounds like a contradiction, but maybe it isn't.
Well, it captures the feeling, doesn't it? Things seem stable, but everyone knows they could tip over any second.
Now, what makes this deep dive, I think, really different is the how, the methodology.
Right. We're not just, reading philosophy alongside the news.
No, we're actively applying it rigorously. We're taking modern events, historical cases, and looking at them through specific Yijing hexagrams.
And crucially, using Dr. Ku's binary yin-yang algorithm to facilitate that. It provides this, almost algorithmic framework.
To understand these deep patterns, patterns of conflict, change, things humans have dealt with for millennia.
That's the critical link, yeah. The algorithm helps translate all this modern complexity, market liquidity, institutional decay, you name it, into those fundamental forces, yin and yang.
So you can map, say, market sentiment onto a specific hexagram judgment.
Exactly. It's not just finding loose analogies. It's like using the Yijing as an operating system for strategic risk assessment. It's quite powerful.
Okay, so our journey today.
Yeah.
We've structured it like a campaign. 3 movements.
Makes sense. Strategy focused.
First, we center the conflict. Yeah. Define this illusion of stability, its fragility.
Yeah.
Then we resolve that conflict, or at least understand it better, by naming the internal threats, the endogenous stuff.
The problems within the system itself. Okay.
And finally, we introduce the new conflict, which is really about the need for strategic waiting.
So not rushing to a solution.
Exactly. This whole deep dive, it's about getting clear strategically. Not panicking, that chicken soup for the soul vibe, but for, global economics.
The goal is strategic advantage. If you, the learner, can really define the forces you're up against,
you can manage them, or at least navigate them better.
That conviction, that need for clarity before action, it brings us right to our opening wisdom, doesn't it?
It does. And bear with me, or my pronunciation might be a bit shaky, but the wisdom is solid. From Sun Tzu.
Let's hear it.
Vige mo Erosion, mo Buddha. Did that land? The wise strategist plans before moving. To plan without achieving is futile. Something like that.
The message came through loud and clear, and it's perfect. Strategic clarity first, then maybe action.
So let's start getting clear. Let's set up this conflict. Okay, this structural weakness, where do we start? How about with that IMF forecast?
Yes, the slight upward revision to global growth. On the surface, good news, right?
You'd think so. Normally markets would cheer that, but our sources flag this tiny bit of blue sky as the start of the conflict. Why?
Because through the Yijing lens, we see that revision as, let's call it the single yang line in a predominantly yin hexagram.
Okay. Yang being active, positive growth, yin being the underlying weakness.
Precisely. And that specific structure, it's hexagram 63, GG, after completion.
After completion.
Yeah.
Sounds final, like the problems are over.
And that's exactly the danger. GG is a massive warning against complacency. It describes a situation where order has been achieved, yes, but because it's complete, it's static, it's inherently fragile. Think of a perfectly stacked Jenga tower, just waiting to fall.
Right. The slightest nudge.
Exactly. It's prone to disorder. The text itself warns. It says something like, the cauldron's tripod breaks its leg, fortune turns to misfortune.
Wow. So the IMF revision, that's the apparent order. The the completion.
That's the interpretation. That's the superficial stability. But the acute uncertainty everyone feels underneath, that's the tripod leg already cracked, under immense stress.
So the real risk isn't that things are bad. It's that we think they're okay, and we stop preparing for things to fall apart. Entropy.
You've got it. We stop planning.
So let's talk about that broken leg. What specifically is the predominantly yin hexagram beneath that single yang growth line?
Where's the fragility?
Well, look at the sheer scale of global sovereign debt. Still incredibly high, right? And now needing higher interest rates to sustain it. That's yin.
Okay, debt. What else?
Regional divergence. The U.S. might boast some tech-led growth, sure. But look at manufacturing PMIs in Europe. Look at stagnation in some key emerging markets.
So the stability isn't evenly spread. Not at all. It's geographically brittle, sectorally brittle. The growth feels precarious. It's often debt-funded, and it really relies on no new shocks hitting the system.
That clicks with history, doesn't it? Periods where everyone declared victory, but the seeds of the next crisis were already there.
Absolutely. Think about the West post-1991, the fall of the Soviet Union.
The Pax Americana, Fukuyama's end of history, total after completion moment.
Textbook GG. The system was declared complete. But did they manage the power? Did they watch the internal imbalances?
Not really. Deregulation, shadow banking, military overstretch.
The hollowing out of industry. All those seeds of entropy were being sown, weren't they? While everyone was celebrating.
Until 2008, the global financial crisis.
The tripod leg finally snapped. Not from outside invasion, but from internal systemic failure. Complacency.
And there's an Eastern parallel too, right? The Ming Dynasty.
Oh, definitely. Admiral Zhang, he's treasure voyages, massive fleets projecting power across the Indian Ocean, huge regional dominance.
Another perfect after completion achievement.
Monumental. But what happened? It was abruptly terminated. Why?
Internal politics costs.
Exactly. Court politics, the immense cost. That was a broken leg. Instead of building on that maritime power, they turned inward, retreated, declared the job done.
Leaving a vacuum.
A huge strategic vacuum at sea, which, eventually allowed other powers to rise. That comes back to Sun Tzu, doesn't it?
He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not will be victorious.
And right now, the global economy, it's lying in wait, basking in that little IMF revision, but it's not being prudent. It's unprepared, vulnerable.
Okay, so if it's not one big catastrophe, but this fragile state, what is the nature of this slowdown? How do we define it?
Our sources converge on a specific term, the polycrisis.
Polycrisis, meaning
the sheer confluence, multiple intersecting challenges hitting all at once. They compound each other. It's not just 1 + 1, it's 2. It's maybe 1 + 1, 3 or 4 in terms of risk.
And this fits another hexagram.
Perfectly. Hexagram 29, Ken, the abysmal water.
Again, just the name sounds draining, like quicksand.
It is draining. The imagery is powerful. Repeated dangers, pitfalls, layer upon layer. Like, think of cascading waterfalls or falling into one abyss only to find another below it.
And the modern economy is stuck in this.
Seems like it. You've got this complex mix. Policy shifts like QT in the West clashing with stimulus elsewhere. You've got lingering pandemic distortions.
Plus geopolitics heating up.
Big time. Trade wars, supply chains frantically reconfiguring towards friendshoring, and then the slow burns. Climate change risks, demographic decline in major economies.
Wow. So you can't just label it recession or inflation. Those are single problems.
Right. Those are individual pitfalls. The polycrisis, the Ken situation, is that fixing one problem makes another worse.
Like fighting inflation with high rates exacerbates the debt problem.
Which then stresses geopolitical fault lines around supply chains.
Creating a feedback loop of danger. An abyss.
Exactly. Pull one lever here, you deepen the pit over there. The 1970s stagflation in the West is a classic historical Ken.
Right. It wasn't just the OPEC oil embargo.
No, that was the external shock. But it combined with internal policy mistakes, right? Keynesian stimulus that didn't account for supply constraints.
Leading to that wage price spiral.
And the old policy tools just failed. They were built for one type of pitfall, demand inflation or cyclical unemployment, not this intersecting mess.
It took Volcker's radical shock therapy, a whole new strategy.
A fundamental rethink, yeah. Because the nature of the problem had changed. And looking east,
China's century of humiliation. Mid-19th to mid-20th century.
A quina that went on for generations, military defeats, internal rebellions like the Taiping, foreign powers carving things up, danger after danger after danger.
What's the lesson from surviving a century-long abyss?
Total strategic resilience, constant adaptation, and maybe, counterintuitively, finding opportunity in the chaos.
Like Sun Tzu said.
In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The opportunity here for you, the learner, is clarity. Realizing that the old playbook, pure efficiency, just in time, everything is dead.
So the new strategy is?
Agility, resilience, building in redundancy, moving with purpose, sure, but prioritizing the ability to withstand shocks over shaving the last penny off costs.
Okay, moving from cascading dangers to, well, something else that feels off. The markets.
Ah, the great divergence.
Yeah. How can major stock indexes be hitting highs, especially tech, while the real economy, manufacturing, non-tech earnings feel so sluggish, so uncertain?
This disconnect, it's a classic sign of illusion, often right before a strategic correction. It's captured perfectly by Hexagram 38, kui, opposition.
Kui, opposition, meaning things are just clashing.
More than clashing. It signifies alienation, things being fundamentally out of sync. The Yijing says something like, we see one another but do not correspond.
So it's not just a normal market fluctuation.
But then I feel like it. It feels like the financial market and the physical economy are almost living in different realities right now.
How so?
You've got this market euphoria, right? Fueled by maybe AI hype, lots of liquidity still sloshing around.
But it seems totally detached from the fundamentals. High interest rates, geopolitical risk.
Exactly. They don't correspond. Our sources would frame this as a massive failure in calculations, one of Sun Tzu's key elements for strategic planning.
The market's plan, its valuation, doesn't match the reality on the ground. The Tao of slowing growth, high costs.
Spot on. Let's look at the data for this non-correspondence.
Where do we see it clearly?
Well, check the PE ratio gap. Early 2024, the valuation difference between those top Magnificent 7 tech stocks and the rest of the S&P 500.
Huge, right? Like dot-com bubble levels.
Getting close, and even more telling, maybe, is the gap between the S&P 500 driven by big tech and the Russell 2000 index.
Which is more small-cap, domestic economy focused.
Exactly. Manufacturing, local businesses, that divergence shouts cooey. The market sees potential in one corner, but the broader economy feels the pain of high rates. They don't correspond.
But hang on, couldn't you argue this time is different? AI genuinely is transformative, network effects are powerful, maybe old metrics are obsolete.
Ah, the eternal siren song of cooey. This time is different.
So the Yijing just dismisses that.
It doesn't predict timing, it diagnoses imbalance. Yes, AI has potential. But the core issue in cooey is when valuation gets completely unmoored from the tangible flow of cash, from real productivity gains across the whole economy.
So the market, in its excitement.
It knows neither itself, its real risks, nor the enemy, the drag of slowing global growth. History suggests these periods of alienation don't last forever. There's usually a painful reconciliation.
A correspondence. Like the dot-com crash.
Textbook cooey. Valuations based on eyeballs completely disconnected from actual profits or cash flow until they weren't.
And Japan's bubble in the 80s was even wilder.
Oh, fantastically so. Remember that famous, maybe apocryphal story? The land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was supposedly worth more than all the real estate in California.
That's fundamentally alienated from reality.
Utterly. A strategic blindness that took decades of deflation to work through.
So the takeaway for the learner, whether managing money or a business.
Steer clear of the cooey momentum chase. Don't get swept up in the euphoria. The real wins, long term, will come from focusing on the underlying Tao actual productivity, real cash flows, tangible value, not just the speculative way.
Okay, so we've painted a picture of the external situation. Fragile completion, cascading crises, markets out of sync. Now we need to pivot.
Inward.
Exactly, because Dr. Kuo's work, which really informs these sources, keeps emphasizing that the deepest threats aren't external shocks, they're endogenous.
Generated from within the system itself, internal weaknesses.
Right, issues of structure, power, trust. We need to look inside the machine.
And we're better to start that internal audit than with the paradox of strength, our greatest technological leap right now, AI.
Is it the pillar holding things up?
No.
Or the sledgehammer cracking the foundation?
This brings us to Hexagram 55, Feng, abundance, or fullness.
Okay, sounds positive. Abundant.
It represents greatness, power at its absolute peak, think of the flood of investment into AI, the sky-high valuations, that general feeling that we're on the edge of something huge, unlimited potential.
Zenith moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the judgment, the commentary on Feng in the Yijing, it's actually one of the most sobering warnings in the whole book.
Why? What does it say about abundance?
It describes a state that, precisely because it's so full, is inherently unstable unless managed with incredible foresight. The image used is stark. The sun at midday.
Meaning?
It can only decline from there. And then it adds, it is like a right arm without an eye to see.
Whoa, okay, unpack that. The abundance, the AI tech, the capital that's the powerful right arm.
Yes, tremendous capability, but the blindness. That's the failure to see the consequences of that power, the risks inherent in the peak itself.
But let's be fair, AI does offer genuine potential, right? Efficiency gains, innovation. How do we separate the real arm from the speculative blindness?
Good question. The blindness seems to manifest in, well, a couple of key ways right now. First, that self-feeding investment cycle.
Capital chasing momentum, not necessarily proven profit.
Pretty much. Everyone's waiting for the first sign of weakness, maybe disappointing earnings. But the system's so awash in liquidity and hype, it just keeps climbing. Until perhaps sentiment snaps suddenly.
Okay, speculative blindness. What's the second type?
Geopolitical blindness. Look at the U.S. clearly experiencing this AI Feng, this technological zenith, but simultaneously.
Facing deep political division, institutional gridlock.
Exactly. That's the ultimate strategic vulnerability, isn't it? You have this incredibly powerful right arm of technology, but if the eye, the state's ability to govern effectively, maintain social cohesion, plan long-term, is failing.
The power becomes unstable, dangerous even.
History is littered with examples of this zenith trap. Think of the British Empire, say 1850 to 1914, peak Feng, unmatched global power, economic dominance. That very abundance bred complacency. A fatal blindness to the rising industrial and military power of Germany, the US. They assumed their system was permanent.
Resting on their laurels. Until World War I.
A catastrophic failure of strategic foresight, born from the arrogance of abundance.
And wasn't there an African example too? Mansa Musa?
Oh, the Mali Empire, 14th century. A spectacular case of Feng. His Hajj pilgrimage, where he supposedly gave away so much gold in Cairo, it caused massive inflation for years.
That's definitely a strong right arm of wealth.
Undeniable, but it arguably blinded the empire to the harder work consolidating power, building lasting administrative structures. The flash-masked underlying fragility, it fragmented later.
So the modern parallel. The U.S. is in an AI Sheng moment.
Yes, but the risk is that the right arm without an eye is the political paralysis happening alongside it. The failure to manage the internal house even as technological power surges.
Phenomenal abundance, but maybe lacking strategic cohesion.
That's the danger of Feng.
And that lack of cohesion, it leads directly to what our sources identify as maybe the most profound risk, deeper even than market bubbles.
The erosion of trust.
Yeah, the crumbling foundations. If Feng was the blindness of power, this next one feels like the ground giving way beneath our feet.
It's Hexagram 23. Ooh, splitting apart. This one feels particularly relevant, maybe critical for modern Western economies especially.
Boo. Splitting apart, what's the image here?
It's incredibly visceral. It depicts a structure literally crumbling from within, specifically a mountain collapsing, eroding down into the earth.
And that symbolizes?
The erosion of trust in the core institutions, the ones meant to guide the economy, provide stability, central banks, government data, regulators, the basic reliability of the fiscal framework.
So we're not just talking about policy disagreements anymore.
No, this is deeper. It's a loss of fundamental belief in the integrity and competence of the system itself.
And when that trust splits apart, what does the Yi-Jing advise?
Something quite chilling, actually. It says it does not further one to have somewhere to go.
Meaning?
Policy paralysis. Because even if you have a good idea, a clear direction, nobody trusts the driver or the map anymore.
So any move the central bank makes,
half the people assume it's politically motivated. The other half think the data it's based on is cooked. No policy feels safe or credible because the foundation of shared belief, of public accord, is gone.
That sounds like a direct assault on Sun Tzu's moral law.
Absolutely. The moral law was about ensuring the people were in complete accord with their ruler, or in our context, with the system's governance.
So the weakening independence of institutions, the political attacks on central banks, the questioning of official data, That is the splitting apart.
That is Bu's in action. It's the loss of that essential moral law. And this internal failure, this endogenous rot, makes the whole system incredibly brittle, vulnerable to any external shock.
History shows this pattern too.
Clearly. The fall of the Western Roman Empire wasn't just about barbarian hordes suddenly appearing at the gates.
The rot started long before.
Decades, centuries before. You had institutional decay, currency debasement, literally shaving metal off the coins, politicization of everything, loss of faith in Rome's ability to manage its affairs. That's Bu.
And in the East, the Qing dynasty.
Late Qing China, 19th century. Lost the mandate of heaven, their moral legitimacy through corruption, incompetence, failure to adapt. The institutions were hollow shells long before the final collapse. Internal decay. Bu.
So what are the modern symptoms? How does this splitting apart show up for us, for the learner, today?
Well, look at the so-called debasement trade, the surging interest in things like gold, Bitcoin, other hard assets.
You see that as more than just investment.
I think it reflects a deep, perhaps subconscious vote of no confidence, a hedge against the perceived debasement of fiat currencies and the erosion of central bank credibility. It's a systemic symptom of Bu.
And it underlines that core insight from Dr. Kuo again.
That most of our big structural challenges, they likely stem from these endogenous factors, things we created or failed to manage internally.
So resolving the conflict means facing that internal decay. We can't just blame external factors. We have to rebuild trust, rebuild that moral law. Okay, so we've laid out the external fragility, Yijing, Qian, Kui, and the internal decay, Fang Gu. It's not a pretty picture.
No, it's complex and daunting.
If we can't just magically fix the internal trust issues overnight, and we're stuck in these overlapping crises, what's the actual path forward? Seems like we need a whole new strategic mindset.
That's exactly right. And that new mindset is captured by Hexagram 5, Dokes. Waiting.
Waiting, okay.
Now, the crucial insight here is this. Forget about a quick fix. Forget a neat return to the good old days of stable completion, GG. That's not happening.
The future isn't a resolution, it's something else.
It's a prolonged period of X, of necessary waiting. But, and this is critical, not passive waiting.
Because waiting usually sounds like doing nothing, delay, inaction.
And that's the opposite of X. The Yijing defines XC as active strategic patience.
Active patience, how does that work?
It's the calculated, disciplined act of preparing, observing, conserving energy, and holding your decisive move until the conditions are actually right for it to succeed.
Like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Or maybe less aggressively, like a farmer tending the fields, preparing the soil, but waiting for the essential rain before planting the main crop. You're marshaling resources, reinforcing your defenses, gathering intelligence.
Waiting for the moment of maximum strategic leverage, where your action won't be wasted in the chaos of Qin or undermined by the distrust of Bu.
Precisely. And you see this understanding reflected, maybe implicitly, in those recent IMF calls. They're talking about coordinated efforts, steadiness of policy.
They're not shouting for massive, immediate stimulus anymore.
No, they're essentially calling for EXA, for patient, credible action. The Yijing commentary on EXO says, if you are sincere, you have light and success.
Sincerity, meaning what? Consistent, credible action.
I think so. Policymakers need to patiently demonstrate reliability through slow, deliberate, coordinated moves. That's the only way to start rebuilding the structural trust that Bus has shattered.
Whereas frantic, short-term political maneuver...
or big, sudden policy U-turns.
They just reinforce the chaos and the lack of trust. So the patience of XE isn't just philosophy, it's a practical necessity now.
It feels like it. And it loops back to Sun Tzu again, doesn't it?
The quote about victory being the main object.
Yeah. Victory is the main object in war. If this is long delayed, weapons are blunted and ardor will be dampened.
And the global economy's ardor investment, long-term planning it, is dampened right now. By uncertainty, by distrust.
Exactly. So only that steady, credible, patient action demonstrating XU can eventually restore the confidence needed for people and businesses to commit resources again.
Okay, but here's the rub. In our world short-term politics, quarterly earnings reports, how do you actually practice strategic patience? How does XE work on the ground? It sounds nice, but...
That is the new conflict, the one we have to accept and manage. XG demands we change how we operate. We have to modify our tactics.
Move away from
the old ways. From hubris thinking we can just force outcomes. And from panic making rash decisions out of fear. Sun Tzu again. Success comes to those who modify their tactics in accordance with the enemy's situation.
And the enemy situation now is fragility, decay, complexity.
Right. So the old tactics, aggressive expansion at all costs, hyper-efficiency, uberosity, they don't fit anymore. They need modification.
Let's make this really concrete for the learner. If you're a policymaker, an investor, a CEO, what does modifying tactics under X actually look like?
Okay, for policymakers, XG means ditching the grand, irreversible gestures. No more massive, unfunded spending binges that create the imbalances of GG.
Focus instead on
Small bore, maybe. Building resilient institutions. Transparent communication to fight the Bow trust erosion. Flexible international cooperation frameworks to handle the polycrisis. Steadiness over slashiness. Credibility over charisma.
Okay, what about for investors?
Big shift needed there too. Get away from chasing momentum, riding that speculative coolie wave that ignores the real economy. XG demands a return to fundamentals.
Deep dives into balance sheets, looking for genuine productivity.
Exactly. Forensic accounting, almost. Assessing real value, not just hype, avoiding the Feng blindness. And crucially, start pricing in geopolitical risk and fragmentation as a permanent feature, not a temporary blip.
And finally, for corporations, businesses on the ground.
This might be the toughest shift. Extra demands moving away from the absolute obsession with lean, just-in-time, lowest-cost possible supply chains.
Because the kenning dangers, the disruptions are too high.
Precisely. The new strategic imperative is agility and redundancy. Resilience. It means holding more inventory, diversifying suppliers, even if it costs more. Maybe nearshoring or friendshoring production.
Building a buffer, a deep well for the drought, as the extra imagery suggests.
That's no longer just an expense on the balance sheet. It's a core competitive advantage. It's survival insurance in an unstable world.
That move from just in time to just in case, that feels like the essence of adapting strategy under X. Hashtag outro, final reflection and call to action. So if we pull all these threads together, this whole strategic journey through the hexagrams, what's the big takeaway?
I think it's this. Stabilizing the global economy, it's not really about waiting for the external storm to pass. Because the storm, the uncertainty, the polycrisis, it's here. It's the new weather.
So stabilization depends on
building a better boat, a sturdier vessel, strengthening our internal integrity, our institutions, our strategies, our resilience, so we can actually navigate through this defined acute uncertainty.
And that focus, that emphasis on internal strength, on the endogenous factors, that really resonates with Dr. Ku's core insight, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We spend so much time analyzing external threats, geopolitical chess moves, oil prices, trade figures, all important, sure.
But the deepest vulnerabilities,
they often come from within. Our own institutional decay, our own complacency, GG, our own speculative blindness, feng kui, our own failure in calculation. The most important deep dive is usually the internal one.
And hopefully this blend of, ancient wisdom and modern analysis helps spark that kind of self-reflection, that critical conceptual thinking.
Gives you, the learner, a different language, a different framework to see the risks and opportunities with perhaps more depth.
Right, a way to practice that strategic patience, that exude.
And maybe I can leave you with one final thought to chew on. A provocative question for your own exu, period.
Go for it.
If we accept that today's global stability isn't real stability, but more like an unstable, constantly negotiated truce between competing powers or blocks, maybe like 19th century Europe just before it all fell apart.
Okay.
Then ask yourself, what specific internal strategic move, whether that's personal for you or for your company or even your country, what internal move should you be making right now to strengthen your own position?
Rather than just waiting for some external solution.
That might never actually arrive. What's your internal move to build resilience?
Don't wait for the resolution. Build your own foundation. Plan before moving. That really ties it all together.
Hopefully.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this pretty intense deep dive into the Yijing and global strategy.
More pleasure.
And if you, the learner, want to keep exploring this unique approach, this blend of market insight and Eastern philosophy, we strongly suggest you check out the source.
Dr. Ku's Yijing focused channel and membership offer ongoing access to this kind of thinking. Really valuable stuff.
Definitely worth exploring. Thanks again for joining us.
Yes, thank you for diving deep with us. Until next time, stay curious and practice that strategic patience.